The tack shooter should also be easy. I copied the code over from the last game, and besides the fact it shot upwards for some reason, it worked great. Then I made a tack model and applied it. Let's see if it shoots tacks now. What? Anyway, I decided on the tack sprayer as a harder variation, so you can still actually dodge it, as opposed to the ring of fire, which you're just screwed. I made it shoot faster with double the tacks of the level 1 version. For the bomb shooter, I found a bomb model online, hooked it up to a bomb shooter model, and gave it a cool explosion. I kinda like the idea of cluster bombs, so that's going to be the level 2 version. And this not only worked first time, but it also turned out awesome. The ice monkey took a bit longer, because I couldn't find this clap animation anywhere. I ended up using this animation instead, which is supposed to be like an ouch my back hurts kind of gesture. I also gave it cool particle effects. Get it? The level 2 ice monkey also has Arctic wind, which slows you in an aura around where the white particles are. Since making the 5 towers went pretty quickly, I thought I'd make like a final boss type tower. I made the model for the base myself, but I kinda sucked at making stairs, so there's none of those. Then I made a head, made a cool projectile like the one the sun god shoots in Bloons tower defense, and added it. It looks pretty awesome. I realized I actually used the wrong projectile. The real one would be too easy to dodge, so I kept this one. I placed the map boundaries, so you can't just walk where the towers will be spawned. Gave the level a start and end point, and mapped out every possible tower spawn.
Just ignore this.
Shoot all or else pay $4,000 to max level it up. I'm part of the red team and we are 30,000 points behind. The first tile I tried capturing is a race. I have 17 hours to beat 100 levels of balloons, all with different challenges. After I defeated Morgan, Time Deer opened up a space rift and sent me to this land. I have to capture it all or else pay $4,000 to max level it up. I'm part of the red team and we are 30,000 points behind. The first tile I tried capturing is a race. You can send rounds out early if your defense is strong enough and beat the entire map in under 5 minutes. I have to be fast. I saved for the spectacle. Wait, I don't have to speak fast just because I'm in a race. I have to rap. This is a land of baboons, their death demanded baboons. I'm exposure, so who's the greatest composer? Buck! I have set a record now. One of the other teams have to beat my time to take the tile and get points. Next, I'm going to try and beat one of their times. This is a boss event, something I am somewhat of an expert in. They have a time of 8 minutes 43 seconds. The thing with these challenges is they're randomized by AI. I have 2 farms, a hero I've never seen before, and 4 ice monkeys. Nobody has ever used 4 ice monkeys. I placed no depth perception down to start farming bananas. Sometimes I wonder where he gets the bananas from in the middle of the ocean. But then I remember there are more important questions in life. Like who raked these leaves to make this track? And why did they include loop-de-loops? I'm already 33 centiseconds behind, but I don't want to talk about him anymore. That is all behind me in the previous Dragoon art. I can't be yelled at for being suboptimal. This is really free.
You're a worthless pile of monkey crap.
Oh yeah, I forgot the game is sentient and can insult me itself. It's round 14, I have 2 farms and 1 ice monkey because who needs 4? To kill the first tier boss, I bought this guy, whose name is Never. For everyone who missed the joke last video, these are my monkey names. I'd like a comment about how funny this is, please. The reason I want all of these players to become the greatest contested territory player, oh yeah, that's the name of it. I could have said that earlier. But you don't care. You only watch my channel for the music that isn't copyright free, but I distort it slightly to trick YouTube into not recognizing it. No one rat on me, you're my next video. Anyway, the reason I want this land is because I'll never afford land or a house in real life, so I may as well get digital. Then I forgot camo lead balloons were a thing and I couldn't pop them. Escaping to home made me restart back at round 40.
Your IQ rhymes with hero.
This just gives me more time to promote my Discord server. We have a chain of crowds over 100,000, lore theory, 0 Kudra mandibles, and 500 bans per day against people who spam unfunny gifts. For the second boss, I used a sun god and 2 nethers, but it wasn't looking good. I've already used half my time on the first 2 bosses. There are 3 more with way more health. What sort of god player got the time before me? Could it be? Was it more? Oh, there are only 2 tiers. They f***ing sucked.
Your last video sucked. Morgan let you in cause he felt bad.
Don't say his name. 500 bans per day against people who spam unfunny gifts. For the second boss, I used a sun god and 2 nethers, but it wasn't looking good. I've already used half my time on the first 2 bosses. There are 3 more with way more health. What sort of god player got the time before me? Could it be? Was it more? Oh, there are only 2 tiers. They sucked.
Your last video sucked. Morgan let you in cause he felt bad.
Don't say his name. I got some beauty rewards and a relic chest. You see, relics are very important in contested territories. I think. I don't know what they do. My next tile was a race on a racetrack. After 2 minutes of research, I discovered something amazing. There is copyright-free Eurobeat racing music. I started with the druid and sniper to kill some balloons, but mostly used my extra thick amount of lines to get the end of round money. As soon as I could afford druid of the jungle, I instantly sent 10 rounds at once. This vine is the most overpowered thing in the game, even more than having 5 ice monkeys. I skipped all the way to round 40 and upgraded a couple snipers. I was getting overwhelmed, so I bought another druid. I can do this. Rush round 59 out of 59. I did it. I win. Oh, I have to actually pop the balloons. It's time the US military took over for me. Have we considered that a strong breeze might be enough to defeat the blues? Actually, lasers is better. And I have spike factors at the end, so nothing can get past. I'll try again later. Don't ask why our team name is Egg Pals. I was 4 days late to the event and I didn't have much choice of teams. Another race map where the top team set the time and I have to beat it to take control. They got 17 minutes. I could go slowly and do it in 16 minutes to guarantee the win, but I'll only be proud of myself if I beat them by a full 10 minutes.
I'll never be proud of you, Jaspoon.
I may be getting completely destroyed now, but I am biding my time, waiting for the 1st of November when my subscribers are predicted to pass Time Dio, and for when I get Wall of Fire. This is the second most overpowered thing in the game. Now I go from round 13 to 39 in less than a minute. I was destroying their time.
I'll destroy your mom.
Then I forgot camo purples exist, immune to the wizard's attacks.
Dragoon, more like Jotun cause you're
I
dead.
used the same strategy but got a sniper who can see camo. Now it's time for what you've all been waiting for. A laser to do everything for me. I don't have to play at all anymore. I just left my computer running so that I could go promote my merch. Then I remembered I don't have any merch. What do I do? Oh, I'll anti-promote everyone else's merch. Consider this. You already have clothes, so you don't need to buy YouTubers clothes. I came back to see... my laser gun and beating the level in under 7 minutes, beating the top team's terrible time by 11 minutes. I'm making progress, but I have to take the top team's tiles to take their points. This centerpiece looks incredibly difficult. It's a least tiers challenge. The last person only placed and upgraded monkeys 11 times, so I have to do it in 10. A single max monkey is 8 tiers, so this is difficult. I started with my trusty Darn monkey. He did alright. I used a few of my tiers to let him bring his crossbow. It was given to him by his aunt before she died. She died of Morgan ripping her throat out for completing a race in 0.1 seconds too slow. Yeah, I said it wouldn't bring him up. I lied. After buying an alchemist for lead popping and a money-making machine, I realized I had no tiers left and probably shouldn't have bought a money-making machine, so I had to use someone different. Quincy, son of Quinceanero Toro, professional race car driver.
This point, it was clear that Heavy was a bit too slow. So, on the 28th of April, Valve did the unthinkable. The Heavy Weapons guy, or Heavy for short, is the closest thing that TF2 has to a mascot. He is displayed prominently on the box cover, and he was the subject of the very first Meet the Team video. Yet, despite how prolific he is within the game's artwork and promotional material, Heavy is less omnipresent in the game itself. In a word, Heavy is a specialist. He's designed to excel in defensive strongholds, but at the cost of general applicability. His low mobility, while not an issue for defending key areas, makes it hard for him to keep up when points are constantly being exchanged. Contrast this with classes like Soldier and Demoman, generalists that are designed to feel comfortable in any situation. while not being as strong in one particular area. Specialists like Heavy aren't necessarily worse than generalists, they're just more situational. But that's what makes specialists so hard to balance. Heavy needs to be slow to balance out his incredible defensive profile, but making Heavy too slow would make no one want to play him. Conversely, if he isn't slow enough, Heavy would be able to exploit his unmatched health pool and DPS. The Heavy Weapons Guide, or Heavy for short, is the closest thing that TF2 has to a mascot. He is displayed prominently on the box cover, and he was the subject of the very first Meet the Team video. Yet, despite how prolific he is within the game's artwork and promotional material, Heavy is less omnipresent in the game itself. In a word, Heavy is a specialist. He's designed to excel in defensive strongholds, but at the cost of general applicability. His low mobility, while not an issue for defending key areas, makes it hard for him to keep up when points are constantly being exchanged. Contrast this with classes like Soldier and Demoman, generalists that are designed to feel comfortable in any situation, while not being as strong in one particular area. Specialists like Heavy aren't necessarily worse than generalists, they're just more situational. But that's what makes specialists so hard to balance. Heavy needs to be slow to balance out his incredible defensive profile, but making Heavy too slow would make no one want to play him. Conversely, if he isn't slow enough, Heavy would be able to exploit his unmatched health pool and DPS to easily push forwards. Trying to balance Heavy revolves around finding just the right mix of mobility and power that makes him fun to play as and against. And as you might imagine, Valve has struggled to find where exactly this balance lies throughout TF2's life. At some points, Heavy has been too fast. At other points, too slow. He's been too strong and he's been too weak. So let's take a look back at the history. Let's look at the evolution of Heavy. Upon TF2's release, Heavy was, unfortunately, one of the worst classes in the game. Not the worst, that title went to Pyro. But Heavy players often struggled to make an impact for one simple reason. Heavy was too slow. In fact, he was even slower than he is today. And not just because he lacked certain unlocks. It took Heavy over a full second just to spin up his minigun, which is about as slow as the modern day Natasha. Once revved up, Heavy's move speed would plummet to 80 hammer units per second, the same speed as a scoped in sniper. Jump revving, especially around corners, was discovered very early on and did help, but not by much. To add insult to injury, the bullet spread of the minigun was much wider than it is today, which made using it at mid-range feel like you were dealing chip damage at best. Heavy's slow speed and inconsistent damage beyond close range made him incredibly easy to exploit. Despite his high health, Heavy would quickly drop to focus fire. Enemies could use the terrain to their advantage by popping in and out from corners to chip away at the Heavy's health. Spies and snipers especially had a field day against Heavies, even more than they do today. So why did Valve make Heavy so exploitable? Well, I'd said that Heavy's slow speed is to balance out his defensive capabilities, but there's more to it than that. Heavy's minigun was designed for players that weren't proficient in what Valve called twitch aiming, otherwise known as flick aiming. With the minigun being an automatic weapon, Heavy players would instead need to track their opponents, keeping their crosshair over their opponent at all times. Good tracking can be hard in modern day TF2, but back in 2007, twitch aim was seen as the more skill-intensive type of aim by far. To compensate for Heavy's lower emphasis on precise aim, he was designed to have a much greater emphasis on another skill, positional awareness. Revving up your minigun was a huge commitment, which forced players to carefully choose the time and place that they did so. New players would often head straight into battle without a plan and get punished accordingly, while more experienced players knew where to position themselves when to rev up, and when to rev down and retreat. Good awareness in general was mandatory for playing Heavy due to how vulnerable he was when alone. Making matters worse was the fact that teleporters couldn't be upgraded and were capped at level 1, with a 10-second cooldown between uses. If a Heavy needed to walk to the front line, they could defend themselves from ambushes with their shotgun, since relying on their minigun would often lead to them losing most of their health before they could even rev up. Using your shotgun as Heavy is seen as a joke today, but it was genuinely useful in the early stages of the game, if only for this one specific situation. Heavy wasn't useless, but he was incredibly exploitable if alone and out in the open, which forced players to develop a level of positional awareness that wasn't required for most other classes. Yet, despite his many glaring flaws, Heavy had the potential to be the single most terrifying thing to fight in the game. He was a pushover on his own, but when backed by a pocket medic, Heavy was seemingly unkillable. To understand why, we need to take a closer look at Heavy's health. Without any overheal, Heavy maxes out at 300 health. That's certainly a lot, but not more than what any other power class can dish out with a single clip. 3 grenades, 4 splash rockets, 3 scattergun meat shots, all of these can drop a Heavy within seconds. With overheal, however, Heavy's health rises to a beefy 450, with the passive healing of the minigun constantly keeping him topped off.
That's a slip. 15 minutes and 29 seconds. That's pretty good. Hope I can get it somewhere.